Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's K-E-S-H-W-A-N-I, Keshwani. We are here because we want to prepare for GMAT. We have been solving GMAT math problems out of this book here, GMAT Review, the official guide, the 13th edition. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. You're going to need it. The problem that we are about to solve is the one that you will find on page number 291. Please turn to page 291, the very first problem on the page, number 168, or rather 166. Today is our lesson number 232. Let's take a look at it. In 166, they gave us a picture here, so let's reproduce it. And the question simply is, what they're asking here is, how much is x plus y? X and y are degree measurements of angles, and the question is, what is their sum? And the picture looks something like this. Here we have a line, on the line, this line, and that line. This we are told is x, this we are told is w, this we are told is z. Oh, is there anything else? And y, of course. X, y, and wc. Oh, fine then. In the first statement they tell us that w is 95. Let's see what we can do with it. W is 95. But the concept that they're testing here, okay, listen carefully. The concept that they're testing here, or I should say concepts, not concept. There are two very elementary, very fundamental concepts of geometry that they're testing here. First concept that they're testing here is the fact that the straight line makes 180 degrees. The straight line makes 180 degrees. Everybody knows that, obviously. Nothing startling there. And therefore, if you have a straight line, like we do here, and part of it we are told is 95 degrees, then the remaining has to be the leftover of 180. We know 180 minus 100. We know 180 minus 100 would be 80 degrees. So if you subtract 95, it will be 85. So we know that this angle is 85. That in itself, does that help us figuring out what is x and y? The answer is a resounding no. It does not help us at all. We need more than that. The first statement by itself is no good. AD, BCE. Now when I say that it is no good, it does not mean that it is utterly useless. It just, what I meant is that it is not sufficient. It may turn out to be very useful, but by itself it is not sufficient. And therefore the answer cannot be A or D. Let's look at the second statement. In the second statement they tell us that z equals 125. Z equals 125. Again, here is our z. This is 125 degrees. If this is 125, then this guy must be whatever is left from 180. 180 minus 125. Well, we know 180 minus 120 would be 60, would have been 60. Therefore, 180 minus 125 would be 55. Again, you have to ignore everything here. I have not erased it, but you have to ignore everything here. Pretend it doesn't exist. That came from the first statement. Just by knowing the fact that this is 55, can we figure out x and y? The answer again is no. Answer cannot be B either. Let's put them together, shall we? Let's put them together. When we put them together, the second concept of geometry that they're testing here is that the sum, I shouldn't be so liberal with my writing, z equals 125. The second concept that they're testing here is that sum of the angles in any quadrilateral is 360 degrees. These are some basic things in geometry that one must know. One must know by heart if you have any hope at all of getting a decent score. Some elementary concept of math you must know. Even if you learned it 20 years ago, you can't use that as an excuse. If you have forgotten all of those things, you have to relearn them. That's all. Why is that 360? Do you know? Why is the sum of the angles in a quadrilateral 360? Because a quadrilateral is just a four-sided picture, and a four-sided picture is nothing more than a union of a two triangles. A four-sided picture is nothing more than a union of two triangles. And since we know that sum of the angles in one triangle is 180, sum of the angles in another triangle is 180, therefore the sum of the angles in a quadrilateral would be 360. That's the second concept that they're testing here. Now watch what happens. So here, let's call this angle, let's give it a name so we can talk about it. Let's call it angle P and angle Q. So now we know that P plus Q plus 85 plus 355 equals 360. From that we can figure out the value of P and Q. Therefore P plus Q must equal 360 minus 85, which is 5, 4 minus 6 is 14 minus 8 is 6, 265 minus another 55 looks like 210, unless I made a mistake. I do not believe I did. No, it's not 210, it's 220 in my notes. 360, 5, so this becomes 5 minus 8, 15 minus 8 is 7, not 6. And then here we end up with 220. So that's the value of P plus Q. Now how is that going to help us? We do not know what P is, we do not know what P is, we do not know the individual value of P and Q, nor is there any way to figure it out, but we do know that their sum is 220. Now watch what happens. Again we are back to what we started again, so I need the room, so I have to erase it. We're done with this part. P plus Q is 220. Now let's use back to the first concept, which says that the sum of the angles in a straight line must be 180, which means x plus p is 180 plus q plus y is another 180, because they make straight lines, and therefore their sum must be 360. We are almost there, okay? Be patient. We already know what P plus Q is. P plus Q plus x plus y. We already know what P plus Q is, therefore x plus y must be 360 minus the value of P plus Q, which we just found to be 220. And therefore the answer is 140 degrees. Again, one more time I'm reminding you, as I do in every single video of data sufficiency, we do the entire problem in its entirety to the very end, to the bitter end. In the real exam, one would be a fool to actually do that out in the real exam. It will be a sheer waste of time. You just have to understand that it's doable. That's it. Once we know this part and this part, one more time, once we know the value of W and once we know the value of Z, if we know the value of Z, we can figure out this angle. Once we have that angle and this angle, sum of these four angles is 360, therefore we can figure out the sum of P and Q. Once we have the sum of P and Q, we can figure out the sum of X and Y. Now just like we could not figure out the value of P and Q individually, but we could figure out their sum, similarly, when we do X plus P plus Q plus Y equals 360, we will not be able to figure out the values of X and Y individually, but we can figure out their sum. And that's all you have to realize. You don't actually have to do it out. It's called data sufficiency. Do you understand? You just have to realize that there is sufficient data. Therefore, two statements together do the job, and the answer is C. The answer is C. Let's do one more, shall we? Let's do the next one. Enough of the talk. Answer is C. I just need a sip. (167). Let's see what they have to say in 167. I can't actually remember if this was our second question. No, this is the first one. 167. In 167, we are told that n and k are positive integers. N and k are positive integers. And the question simply is n plus k, root of n plus k, greater than 2 times root of n? Whenever they give you a question like this, it's always a good idea to simplify this expression as much as you can. This is not an expression, as a matter of fact, I misspoke. An expression is just an expression here. For example, p squared plus 3q minus r. Now that's an expression. If I say this is equal to 5, it is no longer an expression, it's an equality. On the other hand, if I say that this whole thing is actually less than 5, now it's an inequality. So it wasn't an expression, I misspoke, it's an inequality. It doesn't matter whether they give you an expression or whether they give an equality or inequality. If you can simplify it, do it first before you bother looking at the statements, because it makes it much easier to analyze the statements if you have the given information in the simplest form. So let's do it. Let's square both sides to get rid of the square root sign. Let's square this side and let's square that side. The square root of n plus k is simply going to be n plus k. And square of 2 square is 4, and the square root of n is just going to be n. And then we are told that this is bigger. Let's subtract n from both sides. So we get k is equal to 3k is greater than 3 times n. And this is a question mark. We have to answer this thing. This is not something we are given. This is what we are being asked. Is this quantity bigger than that quantity, which we just found out boils down to asking same thing as, is k greater than 3 times n? That's what being asked. Let's see what we are being told. In the first statement, lo and behold, they tell us actually that k is greater than 3 times n. What they are asking us is exactly what they are telling us in the first statement. But they are telling us in a very different way. We just have to analyze this thing and realize that what we are being asked is the exact same thing as what we are being told. First statement is enough by itself. A, D, B, C, E. First statement by itself does the job. Therefore, we know now answer cannot be B, C, or E. It would have to be either A or D. Let's look at second statement. In the second statement, they tell us that n plus k is greater than 3n. Again, subtract n from both sides. And here we find out that 3k is equal to, k is greater than 2n. K is greater than 2n. But the question that was being asked was, is k, this is the question, is k greater than 3n? But we cannot answer that question. We cannot answer whether or not k is greater than 3n just based on the fact that we are told that k is greater than 2n. K could be greater than 2n and still be less than 3n. Or k could be greater than 2n and turns out the value of k is such that it may be greater than 3n. For example, if k happens to be, let's say 11 and n happens to be 5, then 2 times 5 of course is 10, and 11 is greater than 2 times 5. But at the same time, is k greater than 3n? Well, k here is 11 and 3n would be 15, and k is not greater. On the other hand, if instead of 11, if k happens to be 110, then it is greater. 110 is greater than 3 times 5. So simply knowing that k is greater than 2 times n does not enable us to tell for sure if k also happens to be greater than 3 times n. Second statement does not do the job. The answer is A. The answer is A. Alright? I will see you tomorrow, okay? Bye now.